to our, thank you, to our April meeting. We're going to start with the minutes from the last meeting. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, edits from that? Can somebody want to move the minutes? No?
I'll move.
Okay, thank you, Al. Sandy
I'll
has.
I'll
Okay,
second
Mark
it.
seconds, thanks. Okay, Lily,
Abstain, I wasn't there.
Tom,
Yes.
Derek,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Mark,
Yeah.
Sandy,
Yes.
and I abstain. I wasn't there, and I just realized Zaina's not on yet, but we should get going anyway. It's 7:03. Okay. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing, a presentation, discussion, and possible vote of Articles 1 and 2 of the special town meeting relating to Chestnut Hill Commercial Overlay District and associated agreements. And so what we're going to do is Meredith is going to bring us up to date on what's been going on since the last meeting with a slide deck. We got 3 letters just today, comments on this project that we've sent. I don't even know if one of them came quite late. I don't know if you've had a chance to see them, but I just wanted to make sure you were all aware that they arrived. So Meredith is going to do a presentation, then we'll have EDAB clarification questions and go through that, and then we'll open it up to a public hearing, and depending on the number of speakers, we can limit it to 3 minutes or so, but we'll see. Then hopefully we'll close the public hearing and have a discussion and a vote. Does anybody have questions about that? Okay, Meredith, why don't you take over?
Sure. And then, Anne, just to confirm, because Select Board Member Michael Rubenstein was going to present on the contents of the MOA and the tax certainty agreement as sort of the special town meeting too. So do you want us to do that back to back?
I think so, yeah, because we confirmed that we can do the votes. We don't have to do them separately, right? The
Right.
two. So yes, I think we should do those back to back, so we have all the information up front before our conversation.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you, Michael?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So good evening, EDAB. It's good to see everyone again. We just met a few weeks ago with the intention that EDAB shift its March meeting date in anticipation of being one of the first boards and committees to take a position on the Chestnut Hill commercial rezoning package. There was a bit of a delay in terms of the select board, putting the warrant article package before town meeting, and it's been filed as a special town meeting within the annual town meeting. But the last meeting was helpful because it gave EDAB the opportunity to weigh in on some sort of last minute requests that we've received from the growth companies, one of the large property owners within the study area. So I'm happy to go back and sort of revisit what those changes were that EDAB was ultimately supportive of and that were incorporated into the final zoning language that was included as part of the special town meeting warrant. So tonight, EDAB is the first board to hold a public hearing on special town meeting 1 and 2. Special town meeting 1 warrant article are the proposed changes to the zoning bylaw to incorporate and sort of reference the Chestnut Hill Commercial Overlay District. And special town meeting 2 is a warrant article that would authorize the select board to enter into negotiations would authorize the select board to execute a memorandum of agreement and a tax certainty agreement with City Realty. And select board member Michael Rubenstein, who was appointed as the lead negotiator from the select board, for those MOA tax certainty discussions is going to walk through in more detail the components of that. We've talked about it in more broad strokes, but thought that tonight would be a good night to discuss the elements of that in detail. And then on the screen here, we have several other upcoming board and committee public hearings for the proposed zoning. On Thursday, the Planning Board and the Housing Advisory Board are going to hold a joint public hearing on the warrant article package. Then next week, advisory committees, land use, zoning, and sustainability subcommittee is going to hold their public hearing at 5 p.m. That'll be a virtual meeting. April 14th is when the select board public hearing is slated for, and then the full advisory will meet on April 22nd.
Meredith, are you going to be doing presentations at all of those?
Yes.
Okay.
And so tonight's presentation, I mean, EDAB, we've discussed this extensively, the different elements of the zoning. So tonight, my intention wasn't to go and do sort of a repeat of that, although I'm happy to circle back to any aspects of the zoning people would like to talk through. So for topics for discussion tonight, as I mentioned, there's going to be MOA tax certainty presentation. I can fill you in on some other recent updates. And then also included your packet for this evening are a set of some relatively, I wouldn't say they're minor, but so they're friendly amendments that have already been ruled in scope by the moderator. Just things that have come up as people have started digging into the zoning more. So I'd be happy to walk through those as well. And if EDAB felt that those were valuable amendments, you could, make a statement and sort of convey to the select board your support for some or all of those proposed friendly amendments. And then I'm not going to walk through the whole slide deck this evening, but it has been uploaded to your packet. I got some very helpful feedback, not at the March meeting, but at the previous sort of January, February meetings about what would be helpful in terms of presenting the zoning proposal and the policy to, kind of a broader audience. And so I did try to splice together some of those recommendations from EDAB about how to, repackage and present some of this content with some of the more technical aspects from the select board presentation. So any feedback that you might have on how to refine that and, make the presentation more effective as we gear up for these other public hearings would be greatly appreciated. I did just want to recap the very important role that EDAB has played in developing this zoning policy. So first and foremost, EDAB has been a champion for really moving forward with the study work in this rezoning proposal. It's been on the town's to-do list since the 2005 comprehensive plan, which identified opportunities for economic development and mixed-use development along the Boylston Street corridor and within the Chestnut Hill commercial area. I've been with the town for almost 7.5 years. I've heard EDAB talk about, the opportunities that exist in terms of rezoning and with the Chestnut Hill Office Park, during my time in the town and sort of even prior to that, sitting in on EDAB meetings when I was working in a different role that had me listening into a lot of town meetings. So this is a very big moment and something that EDAB has been anticipating for decades at this point. There's also, I just wanted to thank again, George, Sandy, Ken, and Mark for all of their time, effort, that they put into the EDAB ad hoc subcommittee. There's a tremendous amount of analysis, a lot of input provided on different elements of the zoning policy to help with the commercial development incentives and make sure that we have the appropriate protections in place for the town. And that subcommittee convened 10 times. And then also Ken and Zaina representing the Economic Development Advisory Board on the Community Advisory Group, which has convened a total of 21 times. So tremendous amount of time, energy, expertise that EDAB has invested into this process, with broader updates and discussions with the full board over the past couple of years. So we're not going to go through all of these tonight. We've already talked about these various strategies that we've really built into the zoning to incentivize commercial development. But I do think something that EDAB has really been helping staff work through and that we've been grappling with is, developing strategies to meet the objective of incentivizing significant net new commercial tax growth and balancing those with the town's need to really maximize the commercial tax revenue generation opportunity that exists through this zoning with the realities of the commercial market demand in Brookline. And I think where we've landed in terms of the, target for the commercial oriented subdistricts of a minimum 51% commercial square footage, with kind of the multipliers baked into that to reflect, what our preferences are in terms of commercial uses in this area, have been appropriately calibrated with historically what Brookline has seen in mixed use development opportunities in terms of the commercial piece. And then, what, we understand based on the market analysis we undertook at the start of this process in terms of, what exists for commercial development opportunity in this area and in Brookline. And, what's the probability that we're going to get a market cycle that developers are going to be able to meet those 51% and 60% thresholds that we've created in the zoning. So this is the start of my effort to kind of repackage the rezoning proposal based on feedback that I'd received from George and Sandy and others in EDAB after the January, February meetings. So we can come back to this. I think if we have time, if people are curious and want to walk through it, I'm happy to do that. But I think having the presentation regarding the MOA items and then maybe walking through some of the friendly amendments could be a better use of our time. But I'm open to direction from the board.
Yes, I think, why don't you do that? If people have questions about specifics relating to the proposal and the project, we can go back to that.
Okay, do you want me to pull up the friendly amendments or should we move to Select Board Member Rubenstein? Okay, Michael's saying friendly amendments, so I'm going to, there are only 3 of them. I wanted to thank Ken for putting together this document, which is a reflection of the proposed friendly amendments, but then he's also highlighted the aspects of the zoning that reflect the changes that EDAB supported at the previous meeting that we made to accommodate growth companies. So this is an overview. There are 3 proposed friendly amendments, one regarding some language in the minimum commercial requirements. So I'll just have to bear with me while I scroll through. Okay. So the first friendly amendment is in, I think this is section 2C. So we're proposing modifying some of this language for the minimum commercial requirement. Instead of saying project shall provide both in each phase of development, replacing that with through. And this just provides more flexibility in the unlikely scenario that developers would want to front load the commercial piece of their proposals and phase it where the residential would come in at the very end of the development. We think this is more unlikely, but we wanted to be able to provide that flexibility. So that's what that friendly amendment is intended to do. This highlighted section is the language that we added in, giving the select board the flexibility to give a developer, growth companies, for example, some flexibility between when they follow through on the phase that would complete the minimum commercial requirement, subject to an agreement with the select board. This is the second friendly amendment. This is just a Scrivener's error. This effective commercial ratio is not accurate. It's actually referring to the effective commercial gross floor area percentage. So we added in that clarification. This is highlighted from growth companies adjustments where we had provided flexibility that in the CHC4 subdistrict, non-contiguous lots can be included in project proposals. So this is really thinking specifically about the Tully Street lot and making sure that it has the opportunity to be redeveloped under this overlay zoning. And then the setback requirements. So actually the Tully Street 10-foot minimum setback requirement was pre-existing, but that was something that growth companies had identified but already existed in the zoning as a request. And then we did add the flexibility that in the east block of the CHC for the Heath Street minimum 25-foot setback could be reduced by special permit. And for growth companies, we made some adjustments to the finished floor-to-floor heights for parking structures, reducing that to 10 feet. It's 10.5 for all other uses and 15 feet for the ground floor. And then, so then the final set of friendly amendments have to do with the tree canopy requirements, which if you recall, this is something that Ken had flagged at the meeting in March. So there's just some clarification that, you know, the preserved newly planted trees exist at the ground level. And we had, so we're proposing striking this aspect that would allow some of the larger sites to provide a payment in lieu to satisfy a portion of their tree canopy requirement. I think the larger developers are okay with this, particularly given the open space requirements that we have. They'll likely be, you know, planting a lot of trees in the 15% minimum open space, usable open space, or sorry, landscaped open space requirement that we have. And this had been sort of an overcorrection based on some feedback that we had received from the planning board that I think was more specific to smaller sites. We went back and we're looking at the MBTA CA overlay district and the way tree canopy requirements were handled in that. And, you know, just wanted to bring some parity to, you know, what already existed in the zoning bylaw regarding tree canopy requirements. Anyway, all that to say it was an overcorrection. And so we are open to requiring that all of the tree canopy be required on site, and there's not that payment in lieu option. And that is the extent of the friendly amendments, and I'm happy to answer any questions people might have.
Does anybody have questions for Meredith on those friendly amendments before we move on to Michael? Paul?
Hi there. Good evening. First, I wanted to share, this will be my last time with you. So I couldn't miss the last meeting of my participation from the board. So I will miss you all. I just had a quick question for Meredith. Meredith, has growth companies agreed to the special permit requirement, or are they looking for a specific relief as part of their agreement?
Could you ask the question one more time, Paul?
Yeah, so did growth companies was looking for a specific setback so that they could build their parking garage, if I recall. And it sounds, and they had a specific, I don't know if it was like 5 feet or 10 feet. It was something specific. And now it looks like it's a special permit. Have they agreed to the special permit requirement, or and for their support of the article? Are they still in support of the article?
That is a good question. I think I did see Justin Mascaro on the meeting tonight from growth companies. So our understanding was the set of issues that growth companies had raised a few weeks ago before the special town meeting warrant article language was finalized. There were 2 setback issues. There was one with the Heath Street setback, which they'd actually asked. It's currently 25-foot minimum. They'd asked for it to be 12.5. We created even more flexibility, saying it could be reduced by special permit, you know, beyond the 12.5, just giving them some additional flexibility in that. So I think that issue is sufficiently resolved. The other issue was regarding, they had 2 concerns. It was about the setback requirement on Tully Street. There's a 10-foot minimum setback requirement on Tully Street, which can also be reduced by special permit, in theory, down to 0. So that's kind of already contemplated in the zoning. And then their other concern is they're concerned about, just given how narrow the Tully Street lot is, that they wanted reassurance that they could have, you know, I think 0 to 5 foot minimum setback on the boundary or the border with the Chestnut Hill Office Park site. And so that is also, there is not a setback requirement that would impact the Tully Street lot. So that's also sort of addressed in the zoning.
Okay, so I guess I'll go back to my original question because I'm not sure you answered it. Has growth companies agreed to the special permit provision versus specific relief in the article that was a specific setback? Maybe he could, if he's here, maybe he could speak to it. I know that was a very important point for them, and I just want to make sure that they're still supportive.
Sure, I can go back and try to look for the email that was sent to Chaz on, I think it was St. Patrick's Day that morning, sort of reflecting where their position was based on the accommodations that we made before you finalized the warrant article. But is Justin still here?
He's
Yes,
on, I
I
can
see
see him. Does he need to be promoted, or
No,
maybe he doesn't want to speak? Anyway, it would be good to hear at some point, maybe when the select board takes this up, whether they're still supportive now that they have to have a special permit for the relief that they're looking for.
Okay.
okay. Thanks, Paul.
So
Any other-
I'll kind of try to answer Paul. I don't know at this time because I remember we were going back and forth with our attorneys on it. And I haven't heard back from them since on it. So I remember we were still talking to the town, trying to work things out.
Okay. So it's indeterminate at this time.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Any other questions? Alan?
I'm not sure how relevant this is, but to this, the growth company's Tully Street proposal and the whole discussion that we had about that previously, were automated parking systems ever discussed as something that's allowable or desirable? Because just on this lot in particular, the Tully Street lot, it's very narrow for an efficient parking garage, and where a stacking automated system might require a lot less depth and allow more space for a setback. I don't know that that's that even gets mentioned in the zoning, or maybe, I don't know. Did you, Meredith, was this ever discussed?
No, not to my recollection, and I don't think it's addressed specifically in the zoning.
Meredith,
Okay.
I believe we don't have to specifically allow it because we do have we have stackers in general in other lots. So it's not something that has to be expressly allowed. It might be just a design issue that you might need more height, but that's up to the structural engineer. There's nothing in
Well-
the zoning that would preclude them.
Oh, I see.
Thanks,
Right.
thanks, Maria. Any other questions on this topic? I don't see any other hands up. So Michael, you're on.
Thank you. Meredith, you want to drive the slides?
Yes. Hold on. Sorry, Michael. Jess,
Do you want me to drive them?
yes, please. I don't have them readily available. My apologies.
Okay. Okay. Can everybody see the screen with the dark
Yes.
blue and the white text? Great. Okay. Thank you very much to all the members of EDAB who have contributed to both the zoning work and also the specific comments on the specific project with City Realty. So I am going to focus on the contents of the memorandum of agreement and the tax certainty agreement, and go over where we've arrived in our working relationship with City Realty. Okay. Just to level set everybody as to where we're talking about. The City Realty parcels are in yellow here, and the City Realty parcel that's subject to the memorandum of agreement and tax certainty agreement are these parcels here on the western edge. There are a total of 4 parcels there. City Realty actually does own another parcel in the NMU district, but that is not part of this agreement. Okay, here's a timeline of what our relationship with City Realty has been over the last nearly 2 years. City Realty bought the Chestnut Hill Office Park in May of 2024, and they commenced with presenting various conceptual designs to the Community Advisory Group, getting feedback, making modifications, and engaging with both EDAB and the Community Advisory Group on what their interests were for the site, how they fit in with the town's goals, and how they fit in with the neighborhood's goals and interests as well. So that process really went on for a year or more. And they presented those different designs. And by September of 2025, we had come to working from a 14-12, what I've been calling the 14-12-7 program of 3 buildings, 14 stories, 12 stories, and 7 stories, that we then spent the next 4 months both negotiating what the broad strokes of the memorandum of agreement would be, but also ensuring that they would adjust their project in order to meet the zoning, and to the extent that it was reasonable and appropriate, we would adjust the zoning to work with the project. So this was really a collaborative effort on all sides, and not necessarily easy or straightforward at all times, but I really appreciate the fact that all of the parties have come together and stuck through this process. And then through February of this year, we've really negotiated both the details of the memorandum of agreement and the details of the tax certainty agreement. By and large, those efforts were driven in terms of the drafting by Jonathan Simpson. And if you look at these documents, you will find many aspects of them also mirror aspects of similar memoranda of agreement and tax certainty agreements that we've executed in the past, particularly with Welltower on the Newberry College site, and with Chestnut Hill Realty for the Waldo Durgan site. So here again is the 14-12-7 program that they have designed. It's important to note that this program is memorialized within the MOA, which means that in order to change this program, they would have to engage with the town in some process to amend the MOA. That may happen over the course of the design advisory team process, the site plan review, the special permit process, but it is intended that both sides recognize this as the program moving forward for that site. And again, this is common with previous memoranda of agreement that we've engaged in. There was a lot of discussion based on the select board's original goals set for the Chestnut Hill commercial area study in terms of what the fiscal impact would be of this development. As many of you know, and many of you were engaged in, we engaged RKG Associates to come up with a fiscal model, and then as City Realty developed their various proposals, we plugged those proposals into the fiscal model developed by RKG, and have ultimately settled on this estimate of $4.2 million to $6.3 million of net new tax growth as a result just of the City Realty project on these 5.3 acres. And down below, it lists the various types of revenue that we would expect, and as well the cost of services, town services, schools, et cetera. Okay, one of the mechanisms that Meredith mentioned earlier with regard to incentivizing net new commercial development that EDAB has been very intensely engaged with is creating the balance for the effective commercial area percentage metrics that are part of the zoning. So I wanted to lay out both the intent and purpose of those metrics, which is to expand the town's commercial tax base, but also to identify, based on the program that City Realty has provided, what the gross floor area and the effective gross floor area with the effective factors are for their projects and for the 2 phases of their projects. So you can see those numbers here. All of these numbers exceed the numbers in the zoning for the effective factors. The phase 1 project, which is designed to be up to 14 stories, is over the 60% threshold required based on the effective factors of the hotel and the retail that exist within Building A. Now, I want to go through a series of 3 slides that detail the benefits, other benefits within the MOA, but I don't necessarily want to go through all of them in detail, but I want to list them here so that if you have any questions, please feel free to ask about the particulars. The first set is benefits for the town, including the negotiated Affordable Housing Trust Fund payment of almost $11 million that was negotiated with the Housing Advisory Board, as well as the 21 affordable units on site that are included as part of meeting our inclusionary zoning bylaw. There is within the MOA the description of the 2% hard construction cost for infrastructure, which is part of the zoning, and some of the possibilities of that, which I will go into in a later slide. There has been an agreement for contributions to 6 nonprofits throughout the town. There's been an agreement for conference room access within the hotel, and there's been an agreement to explore a business improvement district with other property owners in the area. There is an extensive set of town protections. These are all designed to ensure that the project as it is built will both be built according to the specifications in the MOA, but also that the town will be protected against other risks that we have identified. So for example, within the MOA, there's an agreement that the MOA will be registered as part of the chain of title. Once the town meeting approval has completed, which will complete with the Attorney General's review of a town meeting approved warrant article. There's the 95-year tax certainty agreement, which I'll go into some detail later, which protects the town in case of either change of use or change of ownership. The City Realty has agreed not to file 40B comprehensive permit applications through this process. The fossil-free, fuel-free buildings are protected in case either the pilot that we are part of in the town ends, or the town or the state implement additional regulations with regard to fossil-free buildings. There is a transportation demand management plan that City Realty will have to create and provide annual reporting on. There are penalties for delays in the medical office construction. Those penalties come in 2 forms. One is a delay between the creation of residential, particularly Building C, and Building B, which is the commercial. If there's a delay of more than 5 years, then, I'm sorry, The first delay is related to the fact that they can't get the certificate of occupancy for building C until they break ground and have financing on building B. The second penalty for delays in the medical office construction occurs if they've broken ground, but they fail to actually get the certificate of occupancy within a period of, I believe the current MOA is 5 years, but that is under some negotiation. But if they don't complete the construction within 5 years, then there's a series of penalty payments that City Realty will make to the town based on the expected assessed value of the property. And the remaining ones, I won't go into detail. They're to protect against construction impact or waste management or other aspects of the town's interests in how this how the site is planned and managed. Okay, and then moving on to the third set, there's a set of community protections and benefits. Some of these were negotiated into the MOA and then rolled into the zoning, so they actually occur in both places. Some of them are just in the MOA. So there's been a lot of discussion about the fact that there's no vehicular access except for emergency vehicles from Heath Street. That I think is both in the MOA and the zoning. There is an agreement that there will be 2 pedestrian access paths through the site from Heath Street to Boylston Street. There is a 40-foot wide landscape buffer on the western edge. That was a particular request of the neighborhood to provide sound and vegetative buffering between the large site and the houses to the west. There is a public art installation, and there's been various discussion of the kinds of public art, whether that's a sculpture or a water installation of some kind, but there's an agreement for some form of payment and some maintenance. There's an agreement for EV chargers to be built and available to the public. There's an agreement that any shuttle service that they create between the hotel or other buildings and the Green Line will be accessible also to the public and be free. And there is a signage constraint within the MOA. And lastly, I want to get to the 2% of construction, hard construction costs. That's estimated to be $12 million based on a total $600 million of hard construction costs. And the uses that I've listed there are possible uses. The town has discretion in terms of determining what those uses are. So those will be negotiated over the course of the DAT and the building process. But you can see some of these are specifically related to traffic and streetscape infrastructure, and some of them, like the ladder truck and equipment, are related to public safety infrastructure. Okay, so moving on to the 95-year tax certainty agreement. This tax certainty agreement, whose implementation is described within the MOA, it goes into effect upon the first certificate of occupancy that is provided to City Realty. And it provides 2 significant protections. The first is a protection of our property tax revenue in case the owner sells a building to a tax-exempt organization. The new owner must continue to make payments to the town equal to what the property taxes would have been otherwise. And the other is a protection for the hotel taxes that are present in the hotel use. And if that hotel is converted to a different use, then the owner must continue to make payments to the town equal to what the hotel excise taxes would have been. I've included, just for reference within the slide deck, which is available to all of you, a list of all of the various terms and where they are defined in case there are questions about the terms. And that is the presentation. Happy to take any clarifying questions.
Thank you, Michael. That was great. Questions for Michael? Mark?
So first, great job. That's a very comprehensive effort. Can we describe this as like, is this a market deal, right? Like, is this a standard? Like, how do you, was this a good deal, or like, was it, like relative to other ones done in Brookline? Just looking for some kind of peer, comparisons.
If you're talking about the structure of the MOA and the tax
Yeah.
certainty agreement specifically, I think that, you know, there are some ways in which that it is the same as previous agreements. In some ways, it's a little better. You know, for example, there's a whole set of provisions about what happens in the case of amendments to the zoning. In this particular version of an MOA, the provisions are slightly more favorable to the town. They're a little tighter in terms of when City Realty has to come back to the town. The 2% infrastructure mitigation payments is definitely better than previous agreements in the past. You know, it is double what they've been in the past. I would say that the payment to the HAB, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund payments, that is more than any other payment to the HAB in the past. Welltower was the previous one, was $6-something million. And my understanding is that payment with leverage of state funding can turn into about 100 units. So those are some of the large issues. I mean, this is a very large development, right, relative to those others. So we've worked on extracting a set of benefits both to the town and the neighborhood that are commensurate with the size of the project. And I leave it to you and to town meeting to judge whether we've succeeded.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I don't see any other hands up. Ken. Mike, can you take your the
Oh.
shared screen down so I can see people?
Sure.
Thanks. So-
Michael, is the hotel occupancy excise tax protection, is that, will that be adjusted for inflation?
That is a good question that I don't have the answer to off the top. I mean, I know that the property tax is protected in the sense that, you know, as property taxes increase, then that forms the basis of the payment on a year-by-year basis. But I will have to check the memorandum of agreement and get back to you.
Yeah.
Jonathan has his hand up. Maybe he has an answer.
Hello, everyone. Jonathan Simpson, First Assistant Town Council. It is my understanding that it will adjust with inflation because it utilizes a value referred to as RevPAR, which is a benchmark rate, hotel rate in Boston that does rise with inflation. So I believe it will rise with inflation. Yes.
Yeah, that's revenue per available room. So that's you're benchmarking that to some kind of market study. That's good.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Jonathan.
No problem.
Other questions? Nothing else? Okay, then I think we should open the public comment, public comments, the public hearing, and see what people have to say, and then we can have a further EDAB discussion when that's over. So if you want to make a public comment, please raise your hand, and Blair is first. And if somebody can keep track of about 3 minutes, Jessica, maybe, that would be helpful. Blair,
Can you
you're
hear
on.
me?
Yep.
Okay, I just had two very brief clarifications. One is that I presume that the HAB payment is actually based on the actual sales costs, and this is an estimate. Is that correct?
No, actually, that's not correct. The $10.93 million is a fixed number within the MOA. And
Okay.
it's provided as units are sold, but the total is fixed.
I see. Okay. And the second question, which there may not be an easy answer to, but I just wanted to raise, which is what happens down the road, 3, 4, 5 years if the proposal isn't able to be realized? What's the kind of bailout provisions for the town and for the landowner? And this may be anyway, that's my question, and maybe it's not an answerable question.
Jonathan, do you want to talk to that specifically in the MOA?
Certainly. In terms of the baseline, and I think this is not going to come as a surprise to anyone. The bottom line bailout is that they simply wouldn't take advantage of the overlay district. So that would allow them to, if things really went south, nothing requires that they utilize this zoning and build a project as stated. However, pursuant to the MOA, if they get somewhat far along, I think there's one significant exception to what I just said, which is that there is a provision that if they have built building A, which is the tallest one, the hotel, and then hotel condo building, and then I've opted to build the residential building second, they cannot bail out and not build that third building after a certain period. If they just never build that third building, they will start incurring penalties under the MOA.
Okay.
So that's the big that is, but generally, like I said, they can stop, but the biggest thing, the reason that incentive they have to not stop is that if they stop for excessive amount of time, they'll lose their ability to utilize the overlay district.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
All set, Blair? Dick Benka.
Thank you very much. Before I begin, may I ask a question? I sent around a memorandum to Ms. DeRoy, to the chair, to the planning department staff, and I'm wondering whether that has been distributed.
We sent it, but late this afternoon. I'm not sure how many people, I mean, we sent it as soon as we got it to the rest of EDAB. I'm not sure how many people had a chance to read it. But
okay,
yes, it was.
It certainly lays out the points that I'm trying to make. So let me just hit them very, very quickly. And I appreciate the opportunity. In the first major point, I do make some suggestions that are designed to ensure that the commercial benefits, the commercial tax benefits are actually realized and that they're maintained. And I address some language that I think is ambiguous in one provision, but I also suggest that the pertinent provisions of the city realty agreement be used as a model, and that there be parity with that agreement to the extent it's appropriate with other developers who are who want to take advantage of the overlay district. Some of those provisions might not be relevant to all, like the 2% hard cost provision, but I believe that a provision requiring penalty payments if commercial requirements are not met within 5 years, and the tax certainty agreement are important protections for the town that should be applied across the board, and not just to city realty, and not just in the C4 districts. The second major point that I make is that the inclusion of a 6-year period in a draft MOA that I saw, I believe might be beyond the scope of the warrant article, which refers to a 5-year period. I also, in point number 3, raise questions about the setbacks that might apply to adjacent residential neighborhoods. This is something that applies in the CDC TOM district, where there is an adjacent T6 zone that is where the properties are not all owned by the property owner of the major commercial area where CVS and Star Market is. uh, there really is nothing in the zoning that addresses the potential setback if those residential properties remain residential. Um, would there be a 5-foot setback? Would there be no setback? And I think that is an important point to be considered. And I suggest an amendment to the language to deal with that. I also raise a question similarly about the reduction of the 40-foot setback on the western edge of the CH4 district to 25 feet for just a small section of that western edge where it is unfortunately the closest to the single family homes along Heath Street. And I suggest that that be modified. And then in point number 4, I asked some additional questions. Do we really want to allow short-term rentals? Do we want to eliminate any limit on FAR in the NMU and TOM subdistricts? Could lot lines be rejiggered? Could they be reconfigured in a way that would avoid open space requirements, that would avoid other requirements of the zoning? Should that be dealt with in some way? The step back table, there's a typo that I addressed. The smallest point is point D in this entire presentation. Do we want to limit ingress and egress to and from Heath Street, from the east block of CHC4, as well as from the west block? And then in points F and G of 4, I raised similar questions about what setbacks would actually apply to adjacent residential properties within the subdistricts or adjoining the subdistricts. What seems to have happened is the zoning has just looked at the perimeter of the subdistricts and has not dealt with setbacks within the subdistrict. So there are not a lot of questions that I've put on the table. They're all in writing, and I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Did anyone have any answers to any of those questions off the top or no? Meredith, yeah.
So Dick, thank you for your very thoughtful, detailed feedback. I did, if Jonathan Simpson's still on, I did think it would be helpful to just talk about why certain things exist in the MOA versus in the zoning and sort of the limitations to which we can try to fold certain requirements into from the MOA into the zoning. So, Jonathan, would you be able to explain the limitations of the town being able to fold certain requirements that exist in the MOA into the zoning when it comes to, potential penalty payments?
Do we want to, is there anything in particular that you want me to address? The biggest reason is that a lot of things exist in the MOA and not the zoning, is that a lot of them are not suitable topics for zoning. They don't relate to the things that, we couldn't, for example, require that someone make payments to a local community groups in the zoning. That's not a permissible thing to do. And moreover, we can't mandate in the zoning that everyone enter into an MOA in order to take advantage of the zoning. That's also illegal. So we, as has been our practice in the past, we've kind of flipped that around. We've said that, okay, developer that wants this large scale rezoning, please enter into, work out an MOA with us and have it ready to go so that we can show town meeting as an inducement to rezone as you desire, and you'll agree to execute it upon the zoning being passed. But we can't do that with other parcel owners in this situation, by and large, because we don't know who they will be. So there's no one to negotiate with, and we don't have any leverage over them at this point. The one exception is with the growth companies. We have built in a provision that if what they believe at this point they'll need in the future is to essentially get permission from the select board to proceed in a manner that is not in keeping with the zone. Well, to take advantage of a provision in the zoning, they'll need to get permission of the select board, and I think everyone involved recognizes that at that point we will likely negotiate some sort of an MOA to allow for that to proceed much. And I don't know what that will look like. We haven't negotiated it yet. I don't even know if growth companies will ultimately desire to roll their project forward in that manner, in a manner that needs it. But that's sort of where we are, why we have done this the way we've done it, and why we haven't sort of tried to sort of set up a preemptive MOA for any future development. We don't really have a good way to do that at this point.
Yeah, my concern obviously is that once you rezone, you lose any leverage, such as, and I really do commend City Realty for the MOA that they've entered, but you lose the protection that ensures that there is the commercial development that actually happens and is maintained, and is guaranteed for a period of time. Now, I suppose one way of dealing with this is to say we're only going to rezone part of this area unless and until there is agreement among the property owners that that this sort of protection to the town will be implemented, or to say, and what I've tried to say is the provisions become effective only upon entry of an MOA with provisions that are along these lines. That leaves the choice up to the developer. They can stick with the base zoning, or they can take advantage of the overlay, which becomes effective when they would enter the an MOA with some parity to that that City Realty entered. But I would be very concerned about an across-the-board rezoning, allowing height and eliminating FAR and eliminating setbacks, and not ensuring that the commercial benefits are maintained.
Well, the commercial benefits is one thing that can and is in the zoning, and it's the teeth of it is actually remains in the zoning. The MOA says what it says, but the thing that really keeps them on the straight and narrow with respect to that commercial percentage is the fact that there is a 51% minimum going forward. If they fall below it, they're out of compliance with their zoning. So
and then what happens?
Well, it's what happens when anyone is compliant. You can, you're now non-compliant. You'll be out of compliance with the special permit that you received, because it'll be a condition of the special permit that you're in conformance with all zoning regulations. And then theoretically, we've never had to take it to this point that you could bring an enforcement action against them. I don't know how the town would choose to proceed if that ever happened, but I will say that I think that is much more. It is a real remedy, not a theoretical one, that if they violated an MOA, that we would come after them in contract to put more commercial into their buildings. I don't think that would be anywhere near as effective as pursuing enforcement through zoning. And I will say again, we can't put anything in the zoning that says you get to do this, you get to take advantage of Section 2B if you sign a contract with the town. We can't do that. That's contract zoning. We can't. That's illegal in Massachusetts.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jonathan. Somebody else had their hand up. I don't remember who. Does anybody else want to speak? Janice.
Yes. Thank you, Anne, and thank you all for all the hard work you're all doing. I definitely appreciate the work that's been done. So I just wanted to mention that I've been working with the other members of the CAG who are town meeting members who served in this effort, and also in talking to neighbors to say that what I'm working on with them is a consensus zoning. So a zoning that would be acceptable to a consensus of the people living here. It's not everyone, but the five of us who are town meeting members in precincts 14 and 15 agreed to have a base zoning of 10 stories, which is a 4-story upzoning. Right now it's 6 stories. And so we wrote a letter saying that we were okay with upzoning to 10. And the zoning that you've had in front of you basically has the base zoning of the overlay district at 12 stories, which the neighborhood and the group I'm working with feels that that is excessive, and that should be considered bonus heights, not base heights for the overlay district. And you know, and the goal here is to get something to town meeting that would pass, right? So, and I think it's really important. The neighborhood has gotten essentially 2 protections. One is, and they're both buffer zones, essentially. So, the closing the curb cuts on Heath Street, which is really vital to this community. That's what Chestnut Hill Square did, and behind Wegmans, they closed that. That was a negotiation with the developer there. And it has made all the difference in terms of us being able to get on and off our streets, since all our streets are dead ends. So we have to be able to have free access to Heath Street. And the other one is putting the lowest heights against the neighborhood, which is at 88 feet, it is 1 story higher than the base zoning that's there now. So, but that's really all that the neighborhood actually is getting, and we are going to be getting a considerable amount of disruption to our lives. This is, as much as everybody keeps calling this urban and urban design, this is suburban, and every area, every development in this area is the only ones that are successful have large amounts of surface parking. The atrium failed. No one wanted to go into the bowels of the atrium. And there needs to be adequate parking for the businesses that are in the area. So I was put on this committee as a representative of the Chestnut Hill Village Alliance, which was formed over 25 years ago by our then rep, Ruth Balzer, who noticed that her constituents in Brookline and Newton both had the same concerns, you know, on the border. And so we're very mindful that no matter where the development is happening, whether it's in Newton or in Brookline, it has a tremendous impact on Newton and Brookline residents. And so we can't we can't create zoning as if we were an island, because we're not. We have a porous border. We don't think of ourselves crossing Route 9 that we're going to Newton. I mean, it functions as a holistic village. And I am really concerned that we're not paying adequate attention to the way this area actually works. The traffic study that was done for Route 9 is a good example of one that is going to have tremendous impacts on Brookline and Newton residents and businesses. And, you know, and so I still think that this is not ready for prime time, not ready to be voted tonight, and that we need to really take another thoughtful approach to understanding how this can be successful and work into the fabric of a commercial area that already exists, and a neighborhoods that already exist in both Brookline and Newton. So that's my comment. I hope that we keep working on this. I want to come to consensus, and I want this to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Okay, I don't see anybody else have public comments. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. So EDAB members, what do people think and what kind of comments do you all have, if any? Al?
Thank you. And thanks to all the presenters and commenters who were very thoughtful. So EDAB has expressed itself in the past, including near unanimously, whatever it was, 3 weeks ago, that this ought to go forward. In the past, we were expressing ourselves, other than our general support of the project and the zoning, we were expressing ourselves with respect to whether the select board would act to put it on the warrant, and they did. Coincidentally or not, the morning after, we urged them to do that, but we certainly weren't alone in that. The warrant articles that are before us now represent, the very thing that we said 2 or 3 weeks ago, we hope would go forward. And with the exception of the friendly amendments that Meredith presented, which all seem friendly enough to me, there's not yet a change in what's actually proposed. I'm aware of, and we're all aware, and Janice's email this afternoon described in more detail the discussions that are going on to see if there's some mutually acceptable modification of this among the neighbors, the town, the developer, the select board. To me, it's very encouraging that those discussions are going on, and if they were to bear fruit, that would be wonderful. That said, however, I think that we should go ahead and take a vote tonight endorsing the warrant articles. If there was some mutually acceptable material change in them, when it was still timely for us to, meet again and say, great, we endorse that, we could certainly do that. But it's not clear from, I think from what's known or from what Janice described a few moments ago, if, how close that is. And in any event, if it occurs, we can embrace it. But for the moment, this is the moment. And, we've, as a board, as Meredith said, we've been waiting for this a long time. And the set of things we endorsed in our last meeting are exactly what's before us now. So I would, I would hope that the outcome of our discussion now, following the public hearing, would be that we would vote to approve or endorse favorable action on these warrant articles.
Thanks, Al. Anybody else? Nobody else have comments? Meredith?
So, Anne, I meant to mention this earlier on in my initial presentation, but it was circulated to the board prior to the meeting. We did receive a letter from WS Development earlier today opposing the zoning because they have strong reservations, concerns about the minimum parking requirements and feel that they are not adequate, particularly concerned about potential impacts based on development in the CHC4 subdistrict, and are very concerned about the potential for there to be sort of spillover parking occupying their existing surface parking. So I just wanted to make sure, I know everyone received that in their inboxes, but I just want to make sure that was part of tonight's discussion as well.
Thank you. Well, I agree with Al. I think we need to move forward tonight if, as Al said, and I agree, if Janice, if you're successful, I mean, we don't understand if everybody agrees to get down to 10 stories, I, for one, don't understand what the implications of that are in terms of parking, in terms of open space, in terms of all the other impacts it has on the MOA and anything else. And we need to understand all that. And I think we should go ahead tonight and endorse these warrant articles or support these warrant articles. And if you're successful and we can all figure out what the implications are, we can have another meeting later in the month and endorse something else. So I would suggest that's what we do. Sandy.
I was just going to reiterate, right? Like Janice, kudos to you. You have brought the neighborhood a very, very, very far way since the very early days. I just really want to say thank you, because the fact that there's only one thing left that the neighborhood is really pushing for just speaks volumes about your tenacity and persistence and your collaboration with both the neighbors and the developer to get to that point. So thank you. That said, I do agree with Anne, right? I don't feel like our endorsement of this kind of precludes the ability of you to get where you want to get. But I do also feel very strongly that the entire effort to do something in this part of Chestnut Hill has been on EDAB's agenda for a very, very long time. And that predated my being on EDAB, and it predated City Realty's being here. And we often find ourselves caught in this circular calc of, oh, we need zoning, wait, we need a developer because we need to know what it is, et cetera. And we're in this place where we do have a developer, so we have the benefit of having this really well negotiated, very robust MOA, a very robust process that we've had, and the potential to really realize some real growth here and redevelopment of a site that truly has been underwhelming ever since I moved to Chestnut Hill over a decade ago. I also think and know that many members of this board and other boards have spent a lot of time on this. And, you know, perfect cannot be the enemy of the good here, right? We could continue to talk about this for years, right? But nothing will happen if we don't move it forward. And having been in development for a very long time, you know, if there's issues with it, or somebody can't get something done, they're going to come back and ask for a tweak, right? But it's a lot easier to talk about a tweak to something than it is to do what we're doing right now, which is trying to get a wholesale zoning overlay in place. So because of that, and I do want to just speak, I did read the WS letter. I appreciate where they're coming from, but I also appreciate that WS is a developer who has built stuff that is in places where parking is really challenging or really expensive, like the Snowport, and people figure out a way to get there and without overpaying for their parking, or they come on transit. And on one hand, we talk about the importance constantly in the public environment, right? Not just the public realm, about the importance of transit. And the reality is there is transit nearby. And if people really want to get there and parking is either too expensive or not available or complicated, they will figure out another way to get there. They will Uber, they will, or they will take the train. So the parking piece doesn't scare me personally, because I also know from experience that developers won't build something that they feel is underparked. They will figure it out. They will provide a shuttle to the train. They will work with WS eventually and the other area groups to provide a shuttle, because really it would be better if somebody parked once and walked around Chestnut Hill rather than parked at the street, moved their car to the mall, and then move their car here, right? So at the end of the day, as somebody, you know, a steward, if you will, for the neighborhood of Chestnut Hill and neighborhoods in general, that's really what we should be encouraging, because that gets to a better pedestrian environment. That's the next step. So where we sit today, I truly believe that we should vote to support this. I think it really represents exactly what EDAB was created to do. And I think that this represents a huge step forward for the entire town of Brookline and truly for this neighborhood in Chestnut Hill. So those are my comments.
Thanks, Sandy. Blair, I see your hand up, but I want to see if other EDAB members have comments or questions first. Ken.
Meredith, could you tell EDAB how the third-party consultants' financial feasibility report will work into the whole presentation of the warrant article, the town meeting?
Yes, thank you, Ken. So we have contracted with RKG and another real estate consultant, Brett Pelletier, to do some additional financial feasibility work regarding sort of the 10-story scenario that Janice was referencing, as well as the pro forma on the 7, 12, 14 scenario that's sort of contemplated as part of the MOA with City Realty. And so that work is underway. The consultants have all of the materials that they need. And so we are hoping to have some additional analysis to share at upcoming public hearings. And of course, we'll circulate the findings with EDAB as well, you know, at some point over the next few weeks.
That it, Ken?
Yes, I would just make my plea again for a little more transparency on the analysis so we can all follow along. Thanks.
Thank you. Alice, your hand up again, or is that, okay. Anybody else on EDAB? Okay, Blair, did you have a question?
I just had a statement. I just wanted to follow up on Janice's comment. And in terms of what the compromise that
Just for the record, the public hearing was closed.
Okay, then I'll write my concerns.
Okay. Yeah, no, it was, I asked if anyone else had comments and I didn't see your hand then, but yeah, why don't you send a note? Thank you. George? And then Mark.
Sorry, I'd like to move endorsement of the rezoning and the attending memorandum of agreement.
Okay. Are we endorsing or are we recommending favorable action for these two warrant articles?
I'm not sure I understand the difference.
I think the language is favorable action.
Okay. Mark, did you have something else to say before, and then we can get a second for,
Yeah, it's more just fully concur with you know, I think both with Al and Sandy and where George was going. And just as a quick aside for the WS folks, I'm not worried about them. They will be the first and prime beneficiary of all this new development. They're all going across the street and using the retail. I think it's all going to work out okay. So just as a quick aside. But,
okay, so George made a motion to recommend that EDAB recommends favorable action on special town meeting Articles 1 and 2. Is that the full language, Meredith, that we need?
I was just going to jump in, Anne, and say I think that Meredith might have given us some draft language.
Right.
That I can read it if that's helpful. The potential motion would be that that EDAB recommends favorable action on special town meeting Articles 1 and 2 as presented today, and then the second item that the Economic Development Advisory Board recommends favorable action on special mounting. It should be town meeting 2, Articles 1 and 2, I think. And
no,
then go ahead, Anne.
It just adds the series of friendly amendments that we discussed. So we only need a vote on one or the other, right? We only need a vote on one or the other, right, Meredith?
It might be a little bit cleaner if you do the vote if you want to do favorable action you can vote on both Articles 1 and 2 together, and then we'll do the roll call vote for that. And then if there's interest in endorsing the full scope of friendly amendments or part of the friendly amendments, maybe it's cleaner to just have that as a separate discussion and vote as a standalone.
Okay. So George's motion was, and tell me if this isn't right, George, but I believe you were recommending that EDAB recommends favorable action on special town meeting 1, Articles 1 and 2 as presented on April 6, 2026 tonight.
Correct.
Somebody second that?
Second.
Okay. Sandy.
Yes.
Alan.
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Derek,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Lily,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
I believe that's everybody, and I vote yes. Great. And then the second I'll move, the second vote would be that EDAB recommends favorable action on special town meeting 1, Articles 1 and 2, and we endorse the series of amendments presented by Meredith tonight, the series of friendly amendments. Does anybody have any conversation about that? Or questions about that? Somebody want to second it?
Second.
Okay, Sandy,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Derek,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Lily,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Great. Thanks, everybody. And the next piece of business is, now that we've endorsed this, we need to talk to other people about it. Meredith, do you have the list of meetings that are coming up that you could
Yes.
put up?
Yep.
Because if people volunteer to attend some of these meetings, that would be very helpful. And if people can do it, we can get you talking points or an outline, something something less than 42 slide presentation. And Meredith will be doing presentations at all of these, I believe. So April 9th is the planning board and HAB. The 13th is the advisory committee subcommittee, the select board on the 14th, and the advisory committee on April 22nd. Is anybody willing at this point to say that they can do one of these? And which one? And if not, we may start making phone calls, because I think it's important that people be at these meetings. Paul?
Yeah, I do. You can hear me. I just have a quick question on the vote. This is for Meredith or Michael. Did EDAB just amend the articles and then recommend favorable action on the amended articles? I didn't hear that vote. I just want to make sure that what is now going, I guess the question is, Meredith, who is going to amend the articles?
I think it would be the select board, Paul. So I was thinking that this would be sort of information the select board could use to inform whether you would move forward with amending or adopting that set of friendly amendments.
Okay, it's just because I mean, all these meetings are happening. And is it sufficient? Will EDAB have to say, we recommend favorable action on Articles 1 and 2, and we support the amendments? They wouldn't actually take a position on the amended articles yet, I guess is my point.
Well, we just voted to endorse the series of amendments,
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean that they're, I mean, we
they may
like
not be
them.
there, right?
We like them, but
We like them.
yeah, I think that's what we said.
Is this on our agenda tomorrow night at all, Meredith?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Yeah, it would be best if the articles were amended and everybody's looking at the same thing. But if that's not possible, then it'll have to be good enough.
Well, but our first vote didn't include that, so I believe that's why we just took 2 votes.
Yeah. Okay. It's just a little confusing, I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
It could be cleaner, but okay. It is what it is. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being our select board liaison all these many months. We appreciate it.
It has been my pleasure. The first, hopefully someone else will
I
come
certainly
behind me,
hope.
right? Because you've never had
We
I broke new ground. Hopefully I did it justice and someone else will
broke new
come behind me.
ground. It was very helpful, and I certainly hope that somebody is going to fill your place.
I
And
highly
we
recommend
appreciate
it.
it.
Thank you.
All right, so I didn't see anybody volunteering for these hearings. Please let us know if you're willing to do it. And do we have anything else, Meredith? I don't believe there was anything else on the agenda. Is there anything else going on that we should tell people about?
Nothing that couldn't wait until the next meeting. Oh, sorry, I saw Jess unmute.
No, nothing else to be covered tonight. I did send an email about the parking study draft recommendations being up on the town website for a couple of weeks for our people to provide some extra public comment, but that's the only other update.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, concerns? All right, well, we may have another meeting, depending on what happens moving forward. Otherwise, we will, we're planning an in-person meeting in June, so everybody remember that. And we'll see you next month. Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot for all this, this good work.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Night, everybody.